welcome to the Ladies' Room. Today it is my great pleasure to have with me Wafa Faith Hallam, who has written an incredible memoir, her first book, which reads like a novel. I mean, it is so exciting, and it's so much history, and it's called The Road from Morocco, and it is about her mother, who was forced to marry at the age of 13 and fought for her freedom for 20 years. And you read it and you feel like you're in Morocco. It is just a very exciting book. Congratulations. I mean, how do you even start to do that?
It's been a long labor, 3 years. It took me 3 years. Of course, now a little more than that for the time to come out. But it was excruciating. It was cathartic. It was a good way for me to learn where I was coming from, who I was, and basically just really shed the old skin and move on with my life. So it was an incredible thing. I didn't know I had it in me, but I did.
And you were saying that once you started it, it kind of like just came to you, right?
Yes.
Like,
yes.
But it's interesting that you did get a tape recorder and you said, "Now, Mom," and then she
Right.
spoke for a moment that one day and then didn't want to do it anymore. And
all my life, I heard her say that she wanted to tell her story, and the reason was because she felt she had been so wronged, and she was married against her will, and so on and so forth, and then the fact that she had her children in America, and we all sort of grew up in a completely different environment, the environment she always dreamed of, and when she passed away, it was something that I felt like I had to do. At one point, it was something that I needed to do.
She was very young when she passed away, too, 65?
Yes, she was 65, and it was very painful for me. It was a time of enormous mourning and pain and confusion, and just basically redefining everything that I had always believed in. And it was a time for me to decide to move on with the next segment of my life, actually. And that's how that book came about.
Yeah. And so she fought for 20 years for her freedom. What did she go through? It's so interesting that when she got pregnant with you, she was moved out of the house with all the ladies and then into the...
Right.
Yeah.
She was living. It was really an incredibly traditional environment. It was a true Moroccan, old Moroccan traditional, Arabic culture, and she lived at a time where, the family lived together. The sons lived with their wives and their parents, and they sort of took care of each other. But when I was born, my father decided to move out of the house, and they moved out of there. So that's basically how it happened. But she fought tooth and nail, my father. She was not someone who was submissive. This was not someone who just accepted her destiny, as her sister had done before her, as everybody around her was doing. She was somebody who just decided she was going to fight this tooth and nail, so she was going to do something else. And what helped her was the fact that she was living in a country that was also moving.
Yeah, it's great to get the history of the changes in Morocco and the different. It was French and Spanish. And,
exactly. Yeah. Yes, it was.
And then independent, right?
Exactly, independent. But even after the independence, the French sort of remained because they were asked to keep the schools going, the administration going. There wasn't really a war against France as there was in Algeria later. And so, if you wanted your girls educated, pretty much you had no other choice but to put them in a French school. And so my mother got immediately, through her children, involved in a different culture.
Interesting.
And that opened up her eyes, even more so.
And so they were kept in a very closed environment. The houses were built with no windows on the outside, and so it was just that central courtyard. But then when that exiled king came back, everybody hit the streets. Was that your mother's first time, out?
Well, they hit the street just to see the king, the return of the king. They probably went out just from one house to the next. There was no real, women were not.
Socialization except for who came in.
Yes.
And so how old were you? How you grew up there till what age?
I was in Morocco until the age of 18.
18.
Yes.
Wow. Your whole youth.
Yes, yes. But I went to a French school.
Yeah.
I was actually French educated, literally. I mean, French became my first language. French history was the history that I was learning about. I really did not even learn Arabic as a language until 6th grade, where it was taught to me as a second language.
Really? Your dad didn't beat it into you?
Well,
or
no.
something?
Well, I could speak. See, Morocco has another particular problem to it is that it's. There is a Moroccan dialect, which is an Arabic dialect, and then there is the classical language, which you learn in school. And so, yes, I was able to speak the dialect. I was able to speak with my, although my father spoke excellent French, and helped me actually learn French. Yeah, we spoke Arabic with my mother. We spoke Arabic with the people around us and the family and so on. But we were going to French school, and French very quickly became our main language, and that was our language, you know.
How many siblings do you have?
I have a sister and 2 brothers, and I'm the oldest.
And so you had a lot of anxiety and even considered suicide at one point. Was because
Growing
of what
up.
your mother was going through, or was that transferred to you somehow?
Yes. I think anybody who has teenager will tell you that they live through tremendous anxiety.
Yeah.
It's partly hormonal. It's but it also was, of course, the turmoil in my own family. My
Right.
parents fighting all the time, and it was very, very destructive to me. I loved my father. And I loved my mother, obviously, loved her, although my father was really a grump in so many ways. Their fighting was very, very, very traumatic. I think that by the time I was 14, it was after a fight with my mother, and I just felt like, I was misunderstood, and, it was I had been speaking to my father, he was speaking through me. It was just really, really heartbreaking, and I that's what a 14-year-old does, I guess, just out of despair, attempted to finish my life.
So did you get out of Morocco before your mother did? When you were quite young, you met someone and you...
Yes, yes. My mother had just gone briefly with my grandmother for an operation to Spain, and there too she had noticed that women were living differently.
There were more things to life.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And then she came back to Morocco and she started playing tennis and started things that women at that time didn't do.
She did. Wow, that's
yes.
incredible.
And my father was always horrified and always fighting with her, and I talk of a time where she was wearing this little, short white dresses to play tennis. My father thought it was the end of the world.
Oh my God,
as he knew
funny.
it. But she just did what she had in mind to do. She was a very feisty, a fighter all along.
How did she finally get out?
Listen, that was the most amazing thing, because the women at that time certainly could not request a divorce, and I don't know how she came up with the idea to go see an attorney, a lawyer at the time. And even according to a Sharia law, in Islam, there is a provision for women who are being abandoned by their husbands or not being, provided for with their children.
He was out all the time, right?
Well, my father at one time decided he was going to go look for a job, and she said, okay, I'm just going to go stay with the family and stuff. And she left, and my father, with all the problems that they were having looking for a job, he was in a different town. He stayed away a little too long. And after 3 months, my mother was pronounced divorced.
Oh my God, that's amazing!
And
why can't we do that here?
Oh, I know. It was.
Honey, why don't you go on a vacation?
Because
for 3 months.
Yes, he hadn't been providing for us, and
how was your mother surviving then, if your father was
family, her brothers. She has. I had wonderful
there were 10
uncles.
children in her family, right?
Yes.
Oh, it sounded like a lot of fun, actually. Everybody together and.
Yes, I had wonderful uncles, and she was the youngest. She was the youngest sister, and her younger brothers all loved her. They were very, very close. The last 4 of them were amazing.
Who was the first kiss? Was it Hassan? No.
It was no. I'm not going to say it all. The first kiss was actually No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It wasn't.
She's going to make us read the book. I'm going to have
Yeah,
to.
because that
Yeah.
scene is really actually really great.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It's just so exciting. So you dropped out of school and then you traveled with, were you in love with this man that you met?
Yes, I fell in love with him. I was, interestingly enough, I mean, also younger. He was at the time, I mean, he was older than me, late 20s, and I was 18. And I felt like I was not going to survive my last year of high school, and I decided to leave, went to France, and from there went traveling to about 35 different countries.
35 different
4
countries.
years, yes.
4 years and 35.
Yeah.
And how did he get to travel that much? Were you
He was selling books.
selling books?
Selling
you have
books.
A thing about books,
Yes,
don't you?
yes, selling French books throughout the Middle East and Africa. One of the greatest journey we've had was gone for about 10 months straight.
It wasn't the Encyclopedia Britannica, was
We
it?
actually had the Encyclopedia Britannica. We actually had it even though none of us spoke a word of English.
Suitcases.
We didn't have the actual books with us. We only had like
The order slip.
yeah, exactly. Or you know those books where you have all the leather. You will open it and you could see just the mark, series. But we had like the Cousteau series, and we have wonderful books, all French, obviously, except for the Encyclopedia Britannica, because occasionally we will come across somebody who spoke English. We did not.
You didn't
None
speak
of us.
English until you were 24.
Yes.
But look how beautifully you've mastered the language.
There is hope. You can always learn.
What language do you love the best?
It's a hard question. I love English. I love French with,
French
with
is
passion.
so romantic, yeah.
Yeah, I can say that I can speak and think in both, fluently. But now there are topics that I'm so much better in English. Obviously, like talking about the financial.
You wrote the book in English.
Yes, and I had a lot of fun doing that. I love the language.
So how old were you when you came to the United States?
I was 24. And it was after I had left my boyfriend, went back and took 6 months of studying to take my what do you call it? I mean, in France we call it the baccalaureate, but here you call it maybe the GED.
PhD? Oh,
No, the
GHD.
GED. No, just a high school
GED.
degree. The GED.
Yeah,
high
it wouldn't
school
be
degree.
called the baccalaureate
Right.
here, no. High school degree.
Because
okay.
it's
because
very
you dropped
difficult.
out of high school in
Right.
Morocco.
So I took the baccalaureate, and I decided I was going to go to France to college, but decided that I needed to learn English. That English was really something that I could not know, especially after all that travel. It was really important for me too. So I traveled to England for 6 months to learn English, and it was an amazing experience, taking 5 hours of English a day, but I completely fell in love with the language.
In
yes,
English.
loved
Such
it.
a wacky language, though, isn't it? It's so idiosyncratic.
Yes, but I loved it.
Yeah.
We came to America. One of our uncles sent us, my sister, my 2 brothers, to America to go to school.
Your uncle sent you?
Yes.
Wow, is that great? So where did you go to college?
Gainesville, Florida, the University of Florida, and I was so hungry to get a degree then, because I thought I was too old, and everybody was 18 and blonde and was wearing tight shorts.
And surfing and not going to their classes, that's for sure. They were American. So you met your husband there, though.
I met my husband. I felt like I was so focused, though. I mean, I was taking 20 credits a semester, and I had to get it done. But I met Robert then, and we fell madly in love. And after 2.5 years, I got a fellowship to go to NYU. So he was for him. He had to either follow or stay behind, and he followed me to New York. Yeah.
And how did you get involved in Wall Street? You were a bigwig at Merrill Lynch. It blows my mind, all the things you've done.
Well, I don't know if I was a big wig, but I did well.
Yeah.
I did well. After I was going actually for a master's degree, went for a PhD, but never finished my dissertation, so I cannot be called a PhD.
They call you Dr.
ABD.
Wafa.
They call them ABD, all but dissertation. And then I became pregnant, and I say this in the book. I say that it's like I was always coming up with good excuses to not complete something. Like I didn't complete my high school degree when I was supposed to because I left, and then I didn't complete my PhD dissertation because I got pregnant. But I got pregnant at a time where my marriage was falling apart. So that's why I say it was like almost an excuse for me, or maybe my biological clock was ticking, and decided to become pregnant. It was really a strange
But the marriage
thing.
was already tumultuous by that point.
Oh,
and
yes,
Why did
from
you
the beginning.
stay? From the beginning?
Yes, from the beginning, and violent, and unfortunately, why do you stay in situations like that? I mean, you keep saying to yourself, I love him, I can't live without him, and there's that passion. It was a passionate relationship,
that's good.
but it was really violent. And but it got to the point where the violence just was not acceptable anymore to me. And I think sometimes it takes a long time for an ID, no matter how, for change to take place, no matter how drastic the situation is. And it took me that long. It took me 10 to 11 years to finally decide that was it, that I had it.
You were with Robert for 11 years.
Yes.
And your daughter was 8-ish or something?
No, Sophia was 3.5.
Oh, you didn't get pregnant until you were
I was
already in it
32.
for like 7 or 8 years.
Yes. No.
Oh.
Yeah, that's the strange thing.
And then
is
you wind up having to stay longer because now,
Yeah.
Well,
It's
good
actually
for you that you did
finally.
make it, though. Yeah.
Yes, good for me. Yes, good for me. And I mean, it's always, it's not a good thing to have a divorce, but sometimes it's the best thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then, did you go back to care for your mother or live with your mother? What were your mother had a lot of issues. Where was she living in the United States at that time?
My mother came to America right when I was going to graduate school at NYU. She came to visit, and then she said she couldn't go back, and she stayed with us, and we had a small apartment.
With Robert? With you and Robert?
Yeah.
Oh,
For
that
like
always helps a marriage.
2 or 3 months. Yes, indeed. But she was actually lovely. She was not a big problem. But then we found her a place, I remember, in Queens, and she started doing catering. She was a wonderful cook. And she stayed, and as I became an American, I sponsored her, and she became a resident and a citizen herself. At first, she
became a citizen.
Yes.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Oh,
That's
she
great.
was in love with America. She totally and utterly, completely fell in love with this country the first time she put foot in here.
And did she learn English quickly too?
No.
Oh, okay.
My mother did not have a very good way with languages. Yes.
Yeah.
She always spoke a mediocre French, and she spoke a very poor English, but she got along.
She got along.
She
could
smiled.
communicate. She was a communicator.
She was a very charming, very sweet woman.
Well, her photo on the cover of the book, The Road from Morocco. Look for it on Amazon,
She's
right?
gorgeous. Yes.
Yeah, she looks very beautiful.
At Bookhampton,
You're a
too.
beautiful girl. Oh, at Bookhampton.
Yes.
Excellent. Oh, that's easier. It's kind of like dog-eared from me poring over it. And so, but your mom had early onset arthritis and some issues, and
She
what was
had
going on
health
with her?
problems.
maybe from all the negativity for so many years, do you think?
Oh my God, yes,
Yeah.
totally. She always felt that it wasn't good enough, that her life, that she had sacrificed her childhood, sacrificed her youth, and then her best years, to have children. She had 4 children. She was a divorced woman with 4 children. It's impossible, almost in Morocco in particular, to get remarried. And but she always wanted more, wanted better circumstances, better means. And I think that I felt it was my duty in life to make it happen for her. So
you put a lot of stress on yourself.
That's exactly what happened.
How did that work for you?
for me, it was all about making my mother happy. It was the drive that I got up in the morning. I had to, my happiness came second.
Wow.
And she lived literally through me. I mean, it was vicariously
symbiotic.
Yes,
Yeah.
situation. We never really cut the cord, so to speak. I mean, I
Yeah.
was her oldest child, but she really lived her life through me. My success was her success. When I went into Merrill Lynch and I did well, she couldn't be prouder. She was just, wow, this is it. This is what I always dreamed about. I mean, imagine going from, you know, middle
Yeah.
middle age like living, in Middle Ages, I mean, to Midtown Manhattan.
Yeah, Wall Street high life, and those were the boom days.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it was,
Did
you know,
you
it
ever
was her
take
trip.
your mom to any parties or anything with you?
Absolutely.
Oh my God.
I took her to
My
parties.
mother
I took her on a
loved to go to
trip.
parties with me.
I took her on one of those amazing trips that Merrill Lynch used to give out. You know, when you do well, they send you on those wonderful
Yeah.
trips
Junkets
in
and
wonderful
stuff.
places. You know,
Cancun.
5-star hotel. Yes, I took her to Cancun. So funny you said that. It's true.
Yeah,
I took her
that's
to
what they do,
Cancun, and she loved it. She loved every bit of it. It was everything she ever wanted for me, and you know. So yeah, that's unfortunately when she became sick, I became sick. It was like because our lives were so intertwined.
So you got sick too. What and
I
how
got
did it
sick too.
manifest?
I
in
had a
you?
breakdown. For me, it was a
had
breakdown.
breakdown.
Her illness was so devastating, undiagnosed, you know,
A lot
just
of
the pain.
A lot of pain.
Lot of pain, lot of, you know, symptoms that they couldn't figure out what it was. She kept seeing doctors, and you know.
She was in a walker by the time she was 65, right?
Yes,
She
yes.
you
She had
to help
double
her.
knee replacement,
Unbelievable.
but most people do recoup from that. She did
Yeah.
not. The surgery itself was a success, but she could not walk again because she was in too much pain. And there was no explanation for it except that she let go. She stopped fighting.
Stopped, yeah.
And as she was getting worse, I got completely, I mean, I fell apart. And at the time, you know, Iraq War, the 9/11, you know, situation happened. And unfortunately, everything combined it was devastating for me.
So now you had a spiritual awakening. Did that happen after your mother passed away or during that process? Or how did that happen for you?
It did not happen during that time. I went through hell for a few years. Really, for me, it took a few years after her passing for me to just try to figure out what it is that I want in life. Now that she was no longer there,
Who am I?
who am I? What do I want to do with my life? You know, what is it that's driving me? Well, the driver is no longer here.
Yeah.
My daughter was growing older. She was going to go to college, and I was like left in between, not knowing who I was, what I wanted, where I was going. And really, it was a devastating time in many ways. It was just confusion.
Were you still at Wall Street, or you had stopped that
I
because
had
of
stopped
too
by
much
then.
stress, right?
And I was just going through my savings, basically. I'd sold my apartment, was just living on whatever savings I had, just, you know, day to day trying to figure it out. And I started writing the book, still no particular awakening.
Interesting that the tape was blank.
Yes.
When you went to play your mom's one interview,
One
it was
interview,
blank.
right, it was all blank.
But you'd heard the stories so many times, yeah.
I knew everything about her, obviously. But it happened about a year later after I started the book. I hit like a writer's block. And I was like, nobody's gonna, you know, what is this about? What am I doing here? I need to find a job. I need to, you know, my savings were dwindling. I needed to find you know, to make a living again. My daughter was freaking out. I was just like all kinds of situations. I mean, really, all kinds of things. And a friend of mine called me one day to say, I want you to read this book. It's for you. You have to read this book. And read that book.
Which book? Eckhart Tolle?
Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth. And
Great book.
Yes, I watched all those webinars that Oprah had online, you know, and on TV, online rather, every week. And I just, like it was like a light bulb.
Yeah.
You know how he says, you know, you either get it or you don't, or sometimes you just go, and that's what happened to me. Oh my God, it hit me, and overnight, my entire being changed. I mean, I you know, the anxiety, I was living with so much ailments myself by that time. Yeah. It was like,
melted away.
yes, it was just like something lifted. Oh, it was just
Beautiful.
amazing. And
Yeah.
I went on that path. I stopped writing for quite a while. It was just like reading about spirituality, about just basically being present.
Got into meditation.
Got into meditation right away. That was the first thing.
Yeah.
Stillness, as he calls first.
Turn the mind off.
Turn the mind chatter.
Yeah.
Yes, the chatter off, because
Yeah.
that was killing me.
Well, yeah, all the voices. You didn't do this. You didn't do that. What about this? What about that? I got to do this. I got to do
Yes,
that. I mean,
yes.
it will drive anyone crazy, and it does drive. a person
Exactly. And why
crazy.
did you leave your job? And why don't you go back?
What's
And
going
what
to
are you
happen
going to
now? What are you going to do? How are you going to pay the bill?
Exactly.
Oh,
Exactly.
yeah. We
And
all
you know,
have that, and we all need to learn how to turn that off.
listen,
Yeah.
my next book is about that. It's precisely about spirituality. It's absolutely has changed my life in such a complete and utter way. It changed every direction, and I decided from there on to go into the unknown, literally put everything in a storage and moved on with my life. And here I am.
Excellent. Thank you so much. You are such an interesting person. Please
Thank
come
you.
back and talk to us again. We want
Thanks,
to know
Judy.
the progress in the next book.
Thank
I
you.
thank my husband, Michael McDowell, for giving us these wonderful paintings for our background, and Romany Kramoris for our beautiful glassware. And thank you so much for coming. It's so nice to get to know you.
Thank you, Judy.
And thank you for joining us. Remember, ladies, give yourself lots of room. Room for love, room for fun, room to grow, and room to glow. Have a great week. Bye.
Now I took what I want, but you find that everything they've got, you step forwards to my shadow.